Hi.
Hi. Welcome back to English for Specific Purposes on Telescola. I am Mr. Daryl.
And I'm Miss Tathia. მოგესალმებით. მე თათია ვარ. ეს კი დერილია. კეთილი იყოს თქვენი დაბრუნება ჩვენს ტელესკოლაში. And Mr. Daryl, what is the topic of today's lesson? I think that we have moved to another topic.
We are starting a new topic, and it is marketing.
Oh, very interesting topic. But I think that before we move to the lesson, we have to look at our agenda. What's on our agenda today, Mr. Daryl?
We're going to lead in to the topic of marketing with a couple of discussion questions. We'll move on to the vocabulary for the reading text. We'll look at the reading text. We'll move on to the grammar, and from there, try to sum up everything with a bit of homework.
Very interesting. გაკვეთილს როგორც წესი შესავლით დავიწყებთ, შემდეგ ვისწავლით ახალ სიტყვებს, წავიკითხავთ მარკეტინგთან დაკავშირებულ საინტერესო ტექსტს, ამას მოყვება გრამატიკა და გრამატიკული სავარჯიშოები, შემდეგ შევაჯამებთ გაკვეთილს და დავასრულებთ საშინაო დავალებით. როგორც ყოველთვის, ხო?
Yes.
Okay, let's start. Mr. Daryl, before we start learning new words, I think that we have to discuss some of the questions, okay? And the question is, what does marketing include, Mr. Daryl?
Well, I would say marketing is trying to sell your product better, and trying to find consumers for the product. And how to do that is the study of marketing.
Yes, and it's very, very important because every company, every successful company usually have good marketing department and good marketing campaigns, because marketing campaign is really, really important to sell your products. If you don't sell your products, your business is not successful. So it's closely linked with the success of your business. So I think that a lot of attention should be paid to marketing, right?
Very good. And I think you've answered the question of why it's important. A lot of attention must be paid to it, or else your business will not grow or expand.
Okay, so today we're going to talk a lot about marketing. We'll study new vocabulary connected with marketing and read a text, okay? Now let's move on and let's look at the set of vocabulary we have. And the first word we have is trademark. Trademark is a noun, and in Georgian it means savajro nishani. Trademark. Mr. Daryl, how would you define that word?
It's a name or symbol, usually on product, but definitely associated with a certain company to show that that company has the ownership and the rights to use this product.
Thank you. Trademark. Savajro nishani. And here is an example. Google is a trademark of Google Technologies. Right. Okay. And our next word is brand extension. Brand extension means brandis gaphartoeba. How would you define that word, Mr. Daryl?
I would say it's the using of existing brand products to expand out to new products and new areas of growth.
Okay, now I can get it. So brand extension, brandis gaphartoeba. And here's an example. One of the company's leading radio groups is planning brand extension into pay TV. Mm-hmm. Okay, and the next word is brand equity. Brand equity is a noun phrase, and in Georgian it means brandis kapitali paseulova. So how would you define that word, Mr. Daryl?
Brand equity is the value of a particular brand for the company that makes it.
Okay, thank you. And so brand equity is a noun phrase, and in Georgian it means brandis kapitali paseulova. And here is an example. Brand equity is presumed to be a leading indicator of a business's future success. And the next word we have is
brand positioning. It's a noun, and the Georgian is?
In Georgian it means brandis pozicionireba. And how would you define it in English?
It's a company's decision on how to market the product in relation to its other products. So keeping the entire perspective in mind.
Okay. Brand positioning in Georgian means brandis pozicionireba. And here's an example. Everything from brand positioning to price, supply chain, advertising, capital spending, and quality is being reviewed. And the next word is market share. Market share in Georgian means bazris tsili. Okay? How would you define that word? Can you give us more details about the word?
Yeah, it's the number of things that a company sells as compared with the number of things of the same type that other companies sell.
Okay. So market share in Georgian means bazaris tsili. And we have an example. The company has increased in its market share. And the word, the abbreviation mostly, and this is SWOT, and we have heard SWOT analysis very often, and people might be interested what the SWOT analysis is. Can you tell us what does this abbreviation stand for?
First of all, SWOT is SWOT, and it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And this is the way the companies analyze what's good for their business and what's bad for their business, what's weak about their business plan, and what might be a strength about their plan.
So I think that SWOT analysis is necessary to carry out the SWOT analysis before you start your business, right?
Oh, yep. If you're well prepared, yes.
Yes, so SWOT is an abbreviation, and in Georgian it means ორგანიზაციის ძლიერი მხარეები, სისუსტეები, შესაძლებლობები და საფრთხეები, okay? And here's an example. The company carried out SWOT analysis to find out its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I think that we have finished with words, and it's time to practice and find out how well we remember the definitions. So on the screen, you will see the definitions, and we have to choose the right word for the definitions. And who will be the first?
I know you love this exercise, so why don't you be first?
Yes, you're right.
And I will lead with a question.
Okay.
So what is the number of things that a company sells compared with the number of things the same type that another company might sell?
Okay, let me think. Maybe it's market share.
Let's check. Yes, you are right.
Yeah, I'm right. So I had to think a bit, but then I guessed. Okay, now you will try. So a name or symbol on a product that shows it was made by a particular company and that it cannot be used by other companies without permission.
Okay, I think this was a little easier for me. It's clearly got to be trademark.
Yes, you're right. So a name or symbol on a product that shows it was made by a particular company and that it cannot be used by other companies without permission is called trademark.
Let's give you an easier one as well. Let's see how this goes. The value of a particular brand for the company that makes it.
I remember the word. It is brand equity.
Let's find out. Yes, indeed.
Okay, and I will read the definition now. A company's decision about how a product is marketed in relation to its other products and to competitors' products is called?
Because of that little phrase there, in relation to, I would say brand positioning.
How the brand is positioned, right? Now my turn. I will read the definition and you'll try. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. A way of considering all the good and bad features of a business situation or a company is called?
In a sense, you gave the answer already in your description, SWOT.
Yes, you're right. SWOT. It's an abbreviation for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the final one, which is very easy to guess, we have one definition, one word, but let's still read it. The process of using existing brand name to produce new products or services. And this is, of course,
brand extension.
Brand extension. You are right. So when you are extending the brand, you are introducing new products or services, right? Okay. So we have finished the first section, and now it's time to move to the reading section. But before we read the text, we have to do what? What do we have to do?
We should look at new vocabulary that we might see in the text.
Yes, in order to make it's easier for us to read the text, or to understand the text. Now let's look what we have on the list. The first word is parent company. Parent company is a noun, and in Georgian it means დამფუძნებელი მშობელი კომპანია. So how would you define it in English, Mr. Derill?
It's a company that owns other companies under its name.
So parent company in Georgian means დამფუძნებელი მშობელი კომპანია, and here's an example. Meanwest is the parent company of 5 community banks.
Very successful company.
Very. Okay. And what is the next word, Mr. Derill?
It is a verb, and it is to compete. To compete. Now, I'll give you the English definition, and then you can provide us with the Georgian definition.
Of course.
To compete, to try to be more successful than someone or some other company.
Yes, you're right. To compete is a verb, and in Georgian it means konkurentsis gadzeva. And here's an example. It's difficult for a small shop to compete against the big supermarkets.
Indeed.
Of course, this is true. This is true everywhere, right? Okay. And the next word is competitor. Maybe it comes from the verb compete. Competitor is a noun, and in Georgian it is konkurenti.
You are right. It is connected to compete, and it is a person or company who is trying to improve his market share or his successes or finances by competition.
Yeah. So competitor in Georgian means konkurenti, and here we have an example. Their prices are better than any of their competitors.
Well, that's where you go to shop then.
Yes. Okay, the next word is a phrase is disposable income. Disposable income in Georgian is subtashemossavali. So, but can you be a little bit more specific about the word, okay, to give more details?
Definitely. You're always happy when you've got disposable income. It's money that you can spend on anything you like rather than the things you are forced to spend on, like shelter, food, and things to survive. So things you can spend on leisure.
Yes, so in Georgian it can also be translated as damatebiti shemosavali, we usually say, okay? So it is extra money which you can spend on traveling, for example.
For fun.
And for fun. Okay, disposable income, subtashemossavali. So, and here is an example. High petrol prices will reduce disposable income.
If gas is too expensive, you can't really spend on other things.
Yeah, you don't have, you have no money to spend on other things, okay? For example, for fun. And the next word?
Margin. It's a noun, margin. And it is the profit that's made off of a product or service. What is the Georgian definition, Ms. Thათია?
So margin is a noun, and in Georgian it is mogeba nashti. And here we have an example. Using cheap labor increases profit margin.
That is true.
And I think that we have finished with the words, and now it's time to move to the reading text. But before we read the text, let's have some discussions.
Yes, Ms. Thათია, why do companies create brands?
I think they create brands to stand out on the market, maybe, and to compete with other companies, maybe.
To stand out, to be remembered. When you remember a brand, it's easier to remember that company when you have a visual that goes with the company.
And how can they do it? How can you create brand?
Well, you can design a logo. You can design certain features that go with your company. For example, you can be known as as an exciting, young, dynamic company.
Okay, and I think that marketing is involved in creating the brand, right?
Definitely.
Okay. Now let's move to the text and read the text and find out what the text tells us about marketing and creating brand. Companies can adopt a range of policies to create a brand environment to encompass their product and or service. So the first is family branding. As the name suggests, this is a brand range that adopts the name of the company. This can be done regardless of whether the company is a manufacturer or service provider. Examples include Heinz, Virgin, Cadbury, and Shangri-La hotels. Now let's see what individual brands.
Yes, this is the next step. These are products and services that stand alone, separate from their parent company. They possess a distinct individual identity, and the consumer might not know which company owns the brand. These individual brands will have their own brand strategies to compete within their own marketplace. One of the advantages of individual branding is that a parent company, such as Procter & Gamble, can have several individual brands competing within the same market segment for a share of that particular market. Having such brands competing within the same segment can mean that the parent has a greater overall share of that market segment than its competitors, both individually and collectively.
Okay. Now let's move on to the next section of the text, and we'll read about own label brands. These are brands that are owned and marketed by retailers. They are also known as retailer brands, own brands, dealer brands, private labels, store brands, and generics. The major UK supermarkets have, for instance, created a range of own label brands encompassing everything from chocolate to washing liquids. These compete normally on price with the major label brands such as Heinz, Cadbury, and Collett's. The aim of own label brands is to build loyalty between the customer and the retailer and to improve store margins.
It has its uses. And now, let's sum up. The research contends that own label brands have proved more attractive as a result of their lower price position in markets where the national economy displays low growth and rising unemployment. Where there is a threat of unemployment and diminishing levels of disposable income, consumers will feel increasingly insecure. This will lead them to purchase lower priced products, usually own label brands. In such a competitive market, the major brands may retaliate by lowering their prices to compete on price or maintain their position. In the latter case, they are identifying a quality rather than a price position.
Okay, very detailed information about
all the different kinds of brands.
Different kinds of brands. And now I think that it's time to move to the exercise. We will have sentences and we will have to decide whether the statements are true or false, right? And the first statement is, family branding is only done when the company is a manufacturer. What do you think? Is it true or false, Mr. Durr?
If I remember correctly, I think it's false.
And you're right. And why is it false? We read in the text. These can be done regardless of whether the company is a manufacturer or service provider. Right. Okay, now I will try.
In case of individual brands, it's possible that the consumer won't know which company owns the brand.
I remember, and I remember it quite well, that it's true. And
well done.
Why is it true? Because I remember we read they possess a distinct individual identity and the consumer might not know which company owns the brand. Now it's my turn. I will read and you will guess. So consumers feel insecure when they think they will end up having less money to spend after they have paid all their bills. So the money which is left after they have paid all their bills is called disposable income, as you remember. So what was said about it? Do you remember, Mr. Derill?
This sounds reasonable. I'd say it's true.
It's true. You are right, and here it is. Where there is a threat of unemployment and diminishing levels of disposable income, consumers will feel increasingly insecure.
Let me read the next one for you. Major brands competing with own label brands have to reduce their prices in order to keep their market share.
No, it's definitely false. And I remember that we read in such a competitive market, the major brands may retaliate by lowering their prices to compete on price or maintain their position. Okay. And I think that we have finished with the text, which gave us a lot of information. Now it's time for grammar. And the topic of grammar today is future tenses, which we have studied, but I think that it's time to revise future tense. So the first comes future simple. We use future simple to talk about facts about the future. This is one. 2, predictions not based on present evidence. 3, decisions made at the moment of speaking. 4, offers and suggestions. And final one, we use it for requests. And the form is quite simple. We use will plus infinitive form of the verb. Mr. Derill, can you give us an example of that?
We've got some great examples there. I'll pick one of them. In the future, everyone will work remotely. This is what seems to be happening in the future more and more.
It's
remote
a prediction.
Working. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's a prediction, right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's an example of how we use future simple for predictions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the second is present continuous with future meaning. So we know generally we use present continuous for actions happening now, but it turns out that we can use present continuous with future meaning. So we use present continuous with future meaning for arrangements made before the moment of speaking. For example, they are launching the new product next month. It's next month, but we use present continuous here because we are talking about arrangements made before the moment of speaking.
It's for sure
planned.
going to happen.
Yes,
and so you can use this present continuous because it's going to happen.
Yes. And one more, to be going to is also used to talk about future. So we use to be going to for plans and intentions, which you already have when you speak. Or second, predictions based on present evidence. And Mr. Derill, I want you to give us examples for both uses, okay? So the first one, for example, plans and intentions. Can you give us an example for that?
Yeah, for example, I'm going to call them and invite them to the conference.
This is your intention. You're thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the second? I mean, predictions based on present evidence.
She's extremely hardworking. She is going to be very successful.
Yes. So what is the present evidence here? That
She's hardworking.
Okay. Thank you. And the next one is present simple with future meaning. So it turns out that we can use present simple with future meaning. So this is when we talk about timetables, arrangements, and fixed events, which the speaker cannot change. Okay? For example, Mr. Derill?
Well, the office opens at 8 o'clock. That means...
This is kind of the schedule, fixed schedule, which cannot be changed. It always does, like this. And that's all. Okay, I think that we have time to practice how well we can use this future forms, or how we can talk about future. For this, we have sentences, and we have two options, and we have to choose the right one. I will read a sentence for you, and you will try. I think I'm going to, or I'm doing badly in the English test tomorrow.
Well, it mentions tomorrow. So the second option you cannot use whatsoever. It's got to be the first option. I think I'm going to do badly in the English test tomorrow.
Yes, because I'm doing badly is present continuous tense, and we know that we use it for arrangements, and you cannot arrange such a thing to fail some exam, for example, right? Okay, now let me try.
Okay, here's your sentence. Either does or will the meeting on Thursday last more than 2 hours?
I think it should be, will the meeting on Thursday last more than 2 hours? I think it's kind of a prediction, right? Okay. Now the next one, do they open or are they opening the new branch next week? I think it looks like a planned action, right?
Yep, and so, as you mentioned, we need the present continuous.
Yes, you're right.
So it's got to be, are they opening the branch next week?
Yes, you're absolutely right. The next one, according to the timetable, pay attention, it's a timetable, the train for Oxford leaves or is leaving at 10:15. What do you think should be there?
Well, I listened to you very carefully earlier on, so I know that it is the present simple. So it's got to be, according to the timetable, the train for Oxford leaves at 10:15.
That's great. Okay, and I think that we have come to the end of the lesson, and it's time for us to summarize the lesson.
Well, we looked at vocabulary, as you remember, at the very beginning. This led to our reading task about different types of branding. and we went on to the grammar and reviewed the future tense.
ეხლა კი ჩვენი გაკვეთილი შევაჭამოთ. გაკვეთილის დასაწყისში გავიცანით სიტყვებს, რომელიც მარკეტინგთან იყო დაკავშირებული. შემდეგ წავიკითხეთ ტექსტი, ასევე მარკეტინგის თემასთან დაკავშირებული და შემდეგ განვიხილეთ გრამატიკა, ვისაუბრეთ მომავალ დროებზე, ან როგორ უნდა ვისაუბროთ მომავალზე. ეხლა კი დროა საშინაო დავალებაზე გადავიდეთ. So, what are we going to have for homework, Mr. Darrell?
We would like you to write a paragraph about the brand you are loyal to and tell us what the reason for that is.
I think that people will have to say a lot about it because everyone has favorite brands and the reasons why they like this brand or why they are loyal to the brand. So I think that we will have to read plenty of things.
Brand loyalty is a big thing, I think.
Yes. And where can the homework be uploaded, Mr. Darrell?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. It can be uploaded to the address you see on the screen, and there's where you can find a model answer for the question as well.
Okay, Mr. Darrell, I think that we have to finish today's lesson, right?
Well, I hope they'll come back soon.
Yes, I'm sure. So stay with us and keep on learning.
Bye.
Bye.